Most people who start a small farm are told the same thing first: get chickens. They are supposed to be the simple choice: easy eggs, easy care, easy returns. And for some people, that is true. But if you are trying to build a small farm that is genuinely useful, resilient, and capable of supporting your family in a meaningful way, chickens are not always the smartest animal to prioritize. On a small piece of land, every decision matters. Every square foot matters. Every hour of labor matters. And the real question is not which animal is the most popular. The real question is which animal gives the highest value back for the space, money, and effort you invest. That is where a lot of small farmers quietly realize something important. The animals that create the most value are often not the ones everyone talks about. They are the ones that fit real life better. They produce faster, cost less to maintain, need less room, and open up multiple opportunities for food, income, and long-term self-sufficiency. If your goal is not just to keep animals, but to create a farm that feels more productive, more stable, and more financially practical, then there are better choices to consider first. The first animal is quail. Quail solve one of the most frustrating problems on small farms: limited space with slow returns. Many people want a steady source of eggs and protein, but they do not have enough room for a large flock of hens, and they do not want the noise, mess, and long waiting period that often comes with chickens. Quail fit into that gap beautifully. They mature quickly, often in just 6 to 8 weeks. And they begin producing eggs while chickens are still months away from laying. That speed matters more than most beginners realize. It means less waiting, faster progress, and a much quicker return on the little bit of money you put in. Another reason quail work so well is that they are built for small spaces. A modest setup in a shed, garage, barn corner, or sheltered outdoor structure can support a productive breeding group without taking over your property. You do not need a huge coop, a giant run, or a complicated management system. Clean water, quality feed, and a simple, secure enclosure are often enough to get started. For people trying to create more food from less land, that alone makes quail worth serious attention. Their value does not stop at convenience. Quail eggs are nutrient-dense, appealing, and increasingly sought after in many local markets. In many places, they sell for premium prices compared to chicken eggs because they feel specialty-based and harder to find. That gives small farmers something powerful: the ability to produce a high-value product in a very small footprint. When one male with 3 or 4 females can generate consistent egg production in a space smaller than most chicken setups, the math starts to look very different. Quail also stay remarkably practical for people living in places where chickens are difficult. Noise restrictions, tighter suburban rules, and neighbor complaints can make traditional poultry difficult to manage. Quail are quieter, less obvious, and often overlooked by local regulations that specifically mention chickens. For some small farmers, so that difference is the line between being able to produce food at home and not being able to do it at all. Feed efficiency is another major reason they deserve attention. Quail consume relatively little compared to the amount of eggs they produce. That means the ongoing cost stays manageable even when feed prices climb. And because they reach maturity so fast, they can scale quickly. A small starter group can turn into a productive operation within a single season if managed well. That level of speed is difficult to match with larger animals. What makes quail especially useful is not just their biology. It is their compatibility with modern life. People are busy. They work jobs, raise children, manage homes, and try to build food security in small windows of time. Quail fit that reality. They do not demand ideal farm conditions or hours of daily effort. They quietly produce, quietly multiply, and quietly give more value than most people expect. The second animal is rabbits. Rabbits solve another common small farm problem: how to produce a serious amount of meat without needing pasture, expensive infrastructure, or a large amount of feed. For many families, meat is one of the most expensive items in the grocery budget. Rabbits offer a practical way to change that. They are one of the most efficient meat animals available to small farmers, and they do that while taking up very little room. A basic breeding setup of 1 buck and 2 does can create a surprising amount of food over the course of a year. Rabbits breed quickly, grow quickly, and reach processing size in a fraction of the time required by larger livestock. That speed matters because it creates a more responsive system. You are not waiting many months or years to see results. You are working on a cycle that turns over fast enough to build real momentum. Their feed conversion is one of their greatest strengths. Rabbits transform feed into meat efficiently, which directly lowers production costs. They can also be integrated into a garden-based system more easily than many other animals. Some keepers supplement commercial pellets with weeds, trimmings, and safe garden extras, helping reduce costs even further. That does not mean you should improvise blindly with their diet, but it does mean rabbits fit naturally into a homestead environment where nothing useful goes to waste. The meat itself is another part of their value. Rabbit meat is lean, high in protein, and often healthier than the commercial meats many families rely on. It gives people a cleaner, more controlled protein source without requiring large barns, pasture systems, or heavy equipment. For families that care about quality food as much as savings, that combination is hard to ignore. Space efficiency is where rabbits truly stand apart. A small shed, covered porch, or organized backyard hutch system can support a complete meat operation. You do not need acres. You do not even need a large yard. That makes rabbits especially valuable for people trying to become more self-reliant from suburban properties, small acreages, or compact homesteads. Then there is the breeding cycle. This is where rabbits begin to look less like a side project and more like a serious food system. A healthy doe can raise multiple litters per year, and each litter can add meaningful food volume to the farm in a short period of time. When you understand the rhythm of breeding, kindling, growing out, and processing, rabbits become one of the most scalable protein systems available to the small farmer. There are also secondary benefits that matter. Rabbit manure is exceptionally useful in the garden and can often be applied more directly than many other animal manures. For people trying to build a farm where one part feeds another, that is an important advantage. Rabbits can feed the family while their manure feeds the soil that grows the next round of vegetables. That kind of stacking is where real homestead value begins. The third animal is bees. Bees solve a very different problem, and that is exactly why they are so valuable. Most farm animals require daily attention, constant feeding, cleanup, and direct labor. Bees do not work that way. They create value in a quieter, more passive form. A healthy hive can produce honey, beeswax, and pollination benefits with far less daily effort than almost any other productive farm animal. For small farmers who need additional income but cannot take on another high-maintenance species, bees are often one of the smartest choices available. One hive does not need a large pasture, a barn, or a constant stream of purchased feed. It needs a suitable location, decent forage, regular observation, and occasional seasonal management. That is a very different labor profile from most livestock. Honey alone can justify the effort. Raw local honey often sells at premium prices because people value the flavor, the local connection, and the perceived health benefits. When sold directly, honey has strong market appeal. It feels personal, it feels local, it feels useful. That makes it easier to sell than many beginner farm products. Beeswax adds another layer of value, and in some cases, beeswax products such as candles, salves, and lip balms end up being even more profitable than the honey itself. But bees offer another advantage that many beginners underestimate. They improve the productivity of the rest of the farm. Gardens, berries, fruit trees, and flowering crops all benefit from stronger pollination. So even before you sell a single jar of honey, a healthy hive may be increasing the output of other parts of your property. That makes bees one of the rare farm species that can improve multiple systems at the same time. Their scalability is part of what makes them attractive. A person who learns to manage one hive can often expand to several without multiplying their workload in the same way other livestock would require. That creates room for growth without the same burden of daily chores. For people with limited time, that is a major advantage. There is also something important about the way bees fit into a self-sufficient life. They are not just another product. They change the feel of a farm. They add life, productivity, and a kind of quiet abundance. Instead of depending entirely on effort that begins and ends with your hands, you start working with a system that keeps producing even when you step away. That shift matters. The fourth animal is ducks. Ducks are often dismissed as a side version of chickens, but that is a mistake. Ducks solve problems chickens often make worse. They help with pest control, tolerate wet conditions better, and give valuable eggs while fitting beautifully into integrated garden systems. For many small farms, ducks are not just a replacement for chickens. They are an improvement. One of their biggest advantages is durability. Ducks are generally hardy birds and often handle damp, muddy, or cold conditions better than chickens do. In places where chickens struggle with respiratory issues, foot problems, or seasonal stress, ducks often continue moving through the weather with fewer complications. That resilience matters for beginners who want less fragility in their system. Duck eggs are another reason they deserve more attention. They are larger than chicken eggs, rich, and prized by many bakers and specialty buyers. In local markets, they can often command higher prices than chicken eggs, which means the same daily chore can produce a better return. And some duck breeds continue laying more consistently through colder months, helping smooth out seasonal gaps in production. Where ducks become especially useful is in the garden. They are excellent foragers and enthusiastic eaters of slugs, snails, and many insects that damage crops. Unlike chickens, they do not scratch with the same destructive force, which means they can be easier to work into certain growing systems without tearing everything apart. Many growers discover that ducks do more than produce food. They reduce pest pressure naturally, which lowers the need for intervention elsewhere. Their water needs are often misunderstood. Ducks do not require a large pond to be useful and healthy. A simple kiddie pool or shallow water source, cleaned regularly, is enough for many small farm systems. That makes them much more accessible than people assume. They are messy, yes, but manageable in a very practical way if their setup is designed around that reality. Like quail, ducks also offer a multi-layered value system. Eggs are the obvious product, but there is also meat, pest control, fertility, and landscape integration. One animal is doing several jobs at once. For small farmers, that is where the best decisions usually live. The fifth animal is goats. Goats matter because they solve some of the biggest small farm problems all at once. They produce milk, help manage rough land, create breeding opportunities, and turn difficult spaces into productive spaces. For people with weedy land, brushy fence lines, or interest in home dairy, goats can become one of the highest value animals on the property. Milk is the first major reason. A well-managed dairy goat can produce a meaningful amount of milk for the household, and that milk can be used in multiple forms. Drinking milk, yogurt, cheese, kefir, soap, and skincare products all become possible once the farm has a reliable dairy source. That takes goats beyond food production and into value-added products, which is where small farms often begin to improve their income. Goat milk also serves a different segment of customers. Some people prefer it for digestibility, flavor, or nutrition reasons, and that creates market opportunities that standard cow dairy does not always reach on the same scale. For the small farmer, that matters because niche markets often reward smaller producers more effectively than mainstream markets do. The land management side of goats is just as powerful. Goats are browsers, not grazers, and that means they love many of the plants other animals ignore. Brush, weeds, invasive growth, and overgrown edges can often be turned into feed and milk rather than a land clearing expense. That is a huge advantage on rough or neglected property. Instead of paying for constant mechanical clearing, the animal helps solve the problem while creating output. Their reproductive cycle adds another layer of value. Kids can be sold for breeding, raised for meat, or used to expand the herd. That means one productive doe can create multiple income possibilities beyond milk alone. For a small farm trying to get more than one benefit from each investment, goats make a great deal of sense. Goats are also surprisingly compatible with smaller spaces when managed well. They do not need the acreage cattle require, and they can make good use of land that would otherwise be difficult to profit from. Secure fencing, minerals, hoof care, and rotational management matter, of course, but compared to larger ruminants, goats open the door to dairy and meat production on land that many beginners can actually access. And then there is the simple truth that goats tend to bring a lot of life to a farm. They are intelligent, active, curious animals. For many families, that matters. The work feels more connected. The chores feel more alive. Productivity matters, but so does whether the system feels worth showing up for every day. Goats often do both. What ties all 5 of these animals together is not that they are trendy or unusual. It is that each one gives more value than people expect when land, time, and money are limited. Quail compress egg production into tiny spaces. Rabbits create meat with extraordinary efficiency. Bees generate income and strengthen the productivity of the whole property. Ducks combine eggs with natural pest control and resilience. Goats produce dairy, offspring, and land management from one investment. That does not mean every small farm should raise all 5. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes beginners make is trying to do too much too quickly. They see every good idea, buy every species, build half-finished systems, and end up overwhelmed before anything becomes truly productive. A more profitable path is usually much simpler. Pick one species that matches your land, your time, your local market, and your long-term goals. Learn it deeply. Understand the health patterns, breeding cycles, housing needs, feeding habits, and income opportunities. Let one system become strong before you add another. That approach is not slower in the way people fear. It is steadier, and steady systems tend to become profitable faster than chaotic ones. When you focus, you reduce preventable mistakes. You notice problems sooner. You market better products. You build confidence. Then, when you do add another species, you add from a position of skill rather than stress. A small farm does not become successful by collecting animals. It becomes successful by creating systems that actually fit the life of the person running it. That is the deeper lesson here. The best animal is not the one everyone recommends. It is the one that works best for your real conditions, your climate, your property, your budget, your energy, your goals. If your space is tiny and you want fast eggs, quail may be the smartest place to begin. If your priority is efficient meat production, rabbits can outperform far larger animals. If you need income with less daily labor, bees deserve serious consideration. If you want eggs plus garden help, ducks are incredibly practical. And if you want dairy, offspring, and better use of rough land, goats may offer more total value than any chicken flock ever could. Profitable farming on a small scale is not about copying the default model. It is about choosing what returns the most value for your situation and building carefully from there. Sometimes that means letting go of the assumption that chickens must come first. Sometimes the best move is choosing the animal that works harder, scales faster, and fits your farm more naturally from the start. That is how real self-sufficiency begins, not with a huge property, not with perfect infrastructure, not with doing everything at once. It begins with one smart decision, made clearly, and followed through consistently. When that happens, even a very small farm can start to feel surprisingly abundant. Safety note: animal performance depends heavily on breed, climate, housing quality, feed quality, predator pressure, and local regulations. Always research legal requirements, humane care standards, and disease risks in your area before starting. Introduce any livestock system gradually, use good sanitation, and speak with a qualified veterinarian or experienced local producer when needed. Health and business note: income figures, egg counts, milk production, and breeding outcomes vary widely by management and market. Treat these animals as practical opportunities, not guaranteed profit machines. The strongest small farms usually win through consistency, observation, and careful scaling over time, rather than rushing into expansion.